So starting to come into that comfortable standing foundation, finding your Tadasana, your mountain pose. Starting to really feel into the connections between the soles of the feet and whatever surface you may be connected to. Maybe creating a little side to side movement, more weight to one foot and then the other. Taking a little bend and straighten into the knees, finding that place where you feel nice and tall, but the knees aren't locked. And then creating a little movement in the hips, allowing the center of the hips to settle right over the space between the center of the feet, allowing the shoulders to really fully soften down away from the ears and the palms to either rest at the sides of the thighs or to open toward the space in front of you. And then imagine growing long from the center of the top of the head, feeling that spaciousness, the spaciousness that it creates in the spine. And then finding a point to gaze that's maybe a few feet in front of you, or if it's comfortable, closing the eyes. And taking a moment just to check in with the physical self here. So scanning through the body, noticing what's feeling maybe a little tired, tight, maybe a little wound up or some extra energy. And setting that gentle intention to really make your practice yours this morning. Choosing whichever version of a movement, whichever version of a pose will be your own balance of effort and ease. And then bringing your awareness to your breath. Checking in with a few breaths just as they are. Noticing the sensation of air entering the body. Where does it travel to? What kind of movement does it create? The sensation of air leaving the body. Does it completely leave the body, or is there still a little air at the bottom of your exhale? And then with your next inhale, expanding more fully into that in-breath, really inviting the air deeply down into the lungs, into the belly, into the body. And then slowing down the exhales. Really deep, expansive, full inhales, slow exhales. Beginning to allow the body to settle back to whatever feels like a natural breathing rhythm for you this morning. And then floating or fluttering the eyes open if they're. So from our nice solid standing foundation, mountain pose, we're going to send the hips back and down a little bit, bending the knees almost like we're coming into a shallow chair pose. And then bring the hands out wide to the side, press into the feet, straighten the knees, bring the hands all the way up overhead, finding your upward hands or tall mountain pose. Create a little bit of a back bend, bringing the gaze up toward the hands. And then when you get to the top, bringing the palms together, starting to draw the hands down through heart center, sending those hips back and down, a shallow chair. Inhaling, pressing, lifting, straight knees, hands reach overhead. Exhaling, lowering back and down. If it's comfortable for you, closing the eyes as you really tune into your rhythm, your breath, lift and lower a few times at your own pace. Flowing once more, and then we'll meet in that bent knee, hips back and down position, hands to heart center. Sink the hips back and down just a little further. And then imagine rolling over, leading from the crown of the head. We're going to roll all the way over to forward fold. So I start to tuck the chin, release fingertips down toward the floor. I slow roll my way down, deep, deep bend in the knees so I can bring fingertips all the way down to my floor or my mat. And then start to walk both hands over toward the outer edge of that right foot. Find a little more stretch in left hip or left side body. And walking hands back through center. Over to the left side, find a little more stretch on the right. And walking back through center, letting the upper body be soft and heavy. We'll slow roll our way all the way back toward Mountain Tadasana, finding that standing pose. So back in our Tadasana, equal standing pose. Inhaling, lifting those hands up overhead. Exhaling, sending the hips back and down. Hands to heart center, chair pose. And then we'll move into a little bit of a twisting flow here. So we're going to keep the knees parallel. We're going to reach the fingertips out toward the front of our space, in front of our mat. We're going to inhale, twist the heart to the right, float that right hand out to the side, gazing past your right fingertips. Exhaling, making your way back through center, letting those palms meet for a moment. Inhaling, twisting open to that opposite side. And again, if it's comfortable, maybe closing the eyes, really checking in with the rhythm of your breath, with how this flow feels into the body, slowing down or speeding up. And finding one or two more, so you're balanced. After that last one, coming through center, bringing the hands to heart. Leading from the crown of the head, rolling all the way over, forward fold. And then finding a little bit of a twist here in our forward fold. So deep, deep bend in the knee, so we can take the left fingertips to the floor just in front of the gaze, or if it's in reach, left palm to the floor just in front of the gaze. Taking a bigger bend into the left knee, twist the heart to the right, either slide that right hand onto your hip or release it overhead, stacking the shoulders, gazing past the right hand. Big inhale here as we exhale, turning the heart back down toward the floor, sweeping that right hand down, switching the places of the hands, inhaling opposite side. Big inhale here, exhale, turning the heart back down to the floor. Again, tuning into the rhythm of your breath, flowing a few more times, side to side, one movement, one breath. Inhale opens you up. Exhale draws the heart down, switch the places of the hands. And again, flowing once or twice more. After you feel balanced, making your way back through that forward fold. Dangling into the upper body, slow rolling up, finding Tadasana. And inhaling, lifting into the hands. Exhaling, sending the hips back and down, finding that chair, drawing the hands to heart. Bringing your weight forward onto the toes and the balls of the feet. Lift the heels, find that balancing chair or lifted chair. Slow lowering the heels back down toward the mat, leading from the crown of the head, releasing fingertips down to the floor, rolling your way over. Full forward fold, soft spine, big bend in the knees. Find a little movement for hips and spine or dangling into the upper body. And then finding stillness, lifting to a half forward fold. So we'll straighten but not lock the knees. Find that long neutral spine. Hands slide to shins or thighs. Big inhale here as we exhale, melting back over, forward fold. And then another slow roll up if it feels good, or a circle sweep back to standing, pressing into the feet to lift as the hands come wide and overhead. Exhale takes us back to Tadasana. Inhaling, lifting the hands, upward hands pose. Exhaling over, forward fold. Inhaling, half forward fold. Exhaling, softening to plant the hands. Inhale, slow roll or circle sweep back to standing. And Tadasana. And once more with your own breath, inhaling, expanding upward. Exhaling, forward fold. Inhaling, half fold. Exhaling, soften. Inhale, slow roll or circle sweep up. Inhaling, lifting upward hands. Exhaling, Uttanasana, forward fold. Inhaling, half fold, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhaling, softening to plant both hands, pausing in forward fold. Maybe fingertips are on the floor to create a little more space. Maybe palms are on the floor. We're going to step both legs all the way back to find tabletop. Bringing back the knees, untucking the toes, and then bringing the wrists right under the shoulders. And noticing where hips are in space, we're going to try to keep our hips level while we slide the right leg back behind us. Press the heel, pull the toe, try to lift that leg parallel to the floor, and then lower that right glute level with the left. Really firm up the connection between right palm and floor, and then slide the left arm out. Rotate the pinky to face the floor. Find a real sense of length here from fingertips through opposite heel. Waiting for that next exhale, float that hand and knee back down to the mat. Slide the left leg back. See if we can lift the leg parallel to the floor, but keep the pelvis level. Heel presses, toes pull. Sliding that right arm out, rotating pinky to the floor. Imagining that length, fingertips through torso, through opposite heel. Next exhale, float that hand and knee back down to the mat. Coming to the second side, if you like, extending hand and leg at the same time, finding that sense of length. And then just noticing balance here. We're going to start to bring that arm and leg out in the direction of perpendicular to the torso. Bringing the hand and leg back in line with the body. Floating that hand and knee back down to the mat. Extending left leg, right arm. Bringing the arm and leg out perpendicular to the torso. Back in line with the body. Hand and knee coming back down to the mat. Bring the knees out wide toward the sides of the mat. Let the toes point toward one another. If it's comfortable, send the hips back to the heels, wide knee child's pose. If it feels better, keep the hips a little more elevated and walk your hands, forearms out toward the top of your mat. So either a wide knee child's pose or a wide knee puppy pose. Letting head, neck, shoulders soften down toward the floor as much as possible. And then beginning to lift your way all the way back up toward tabletop. So starting to walk those hands back in, eventually bringing the knees back in line with the hips. And then keeping the left knee connected to your mat, just slide or rotate your left foot just off the left side of your mat. Slide the right leg back behind you, lifting the knee, moving into a supported side plank. So we'll turn the heart and hips open to the right. We're going to come onto the inner edge of the right foot. The right hand is going to come to the hip, or if you like, you can send it overhead, shoulders stacked, gazing past the fingers. And then try to float that right leg parallel to the floor, pulling the toes in toward the shin, imagining that heel reaching away. And then allowing that right foot to float back to the floor. We're going to bring the right arm all the way up overhead, find a big side stretch. Reaching those right fingertips back for the ceiling. Big inhale. As we exhale, bringing that hand back down onto the mat. We'll slide the left foot in, bring the right knee down. Find a little movement for hips to spine or move through a child's pose. And tabletop. Right knee stays connected. We'll slide that right foot just off the side of our mat. Bring the left leg back, lift the knee, roll over onto the inner edge of that foot, open hips and heart to the left. Choose whichever variation feels best for left arm. If it feels good, go ahead and float that leg parallel to the floor, pressing the heel, pulling the toe. And then moving into that big side body stretch, letting the foot float back down if it's not there already. Left arm reaching overhead. Inhaling, lifting that left arm. Exhaling, floating it back down to the mat. Bringing knees and hips back in line. Lifting and lowering the spine a few times or figurating the hips. And if it feels good, staying here in tabletop for a moment or coming up to a downward facing dog. Stepping the hands out a little forward of the shoulder, tucking the toes, lifting the tailbone, straightening the knees, imagining those armpits gently rotating in toward one another, heels pressing in the direction of the floor, and then find a little movement here, figurating the hips, pedaling the feet, moving forward and backward from down dog toward plank. And moving through either tabletop or down dog to come to forward fold at the top of our mat. So if you're in down dog, find that deep bend into the knees, bring belly toward thighs, bring the gaze forward, and walk, hop, or float the feet forward. If we're in tabletop, picking one foot, stepping those toes forward toward the hands. We're going to bring the hand to support, bringing that leg a little further forward on that side so we can tuck the toe on the back foot, lift the knee, slide, scoot, or float that foot forward. Forward fold, and then either finding that juicy movement as you slow roll up or finding stillness, circle sweeping your way to standing. And finding Tadasana. Inhaling, lifting the hands. Exhaling our way over, forward fold. Inhaling, half fold. Exhaling, softening to plant the hands. This time we'll step all the way back into plank. So again, maybe I'm up on fingertips to help create space to step back, or I'm on palms. I'm going to send those legs all the way back. And then lowering to half plank. Bringing the knees down toward the mat, untucking the toes, keeping elbows pointed toward the back of the room and the belly lifted. Lowering my heart down toward my hands as I approach the floor, sliding the heart forward between the shoulders, elbows gently pulling toward the back of the room, using low back, lifting the heart, lifting the gaze, finding cobra, exhaling, lowering back toward the earth. Inhaling cobra. Exhaling, lowering. This time, inhaling cobra, pause, find a breath. See if you could float your fingertips off of your mat. And exhaling, lowering, pressing the hands under the shoulders, keeping the knees down, lifting up toward a tabletop, rocking the hips back toward the heels, moving into a child's pose, or widening the knees again, wide knee child's pose. Next, inhale, lifting back toward tabletop. If we widen the knees, bringing them back in line with the hips. Moving through this tabletop to come toward forward fold or moving through downward facing dog. Essentially making your way through forward fold at the top of your mat and meeting in mountain pose. Okay, Tadasana at the top of our mat. Inhaling, lifting the hands. Urdhva Hastasana, upward hands. Exhaling over, fold. Inhaling, half fold. Exhaling, softening to plant the hands, big bend into the knees, step or maybe silent hop or float back with the feet, finding that plank. If you like, lower the knees, half plank. So option, keep the knees lifted, still lowering heart toward hands with elbows pointed toward the back of the room. We lower to that low plank, shoulders come no lower than elbows. We pause, roll forward over the toes, open the heart, thighs stay floated, upward facing dog. And rolling back over the toes, lifting the hips through plank, lowering the knees, untucking the toes, sending the hips to the heels, child's pose, or widen the knees, hips to heels, wide knee, child's pose. Inhaling, lifting back toward tabletop, moving through a tabletop to come toward forward fold at the top of your mat, or moving through a downward facing dog. Did I say tabletop? Forward fold at the top of your mat. Eventually finding your way back to standing. And from Tadasana, inhaling, lift. Exhaling our way over. Inhaling, half fold. Exhaling, softening to plant the hands. This time as you step back, your choice, whatever movement feels good here. You could step right back to tabletop, flow through child's pose. You could find half plank, lower knees, chest, chin to find cobra, plank, low plank to find up dog. And finding one more breath wherever you're at, and then meeting in either table or downward facing dog to move toward some lunges. So finding either a downward facing dog or a tabletop. If we are in downward facing dog, we're gonna inhale, send that right leg all the way back behind us. Heel pressing, toes pulling, hips are square. Exhaling to step it forward toward the hands. Or from table, bringing that foot forward, hand comes to support. Either way, we're landing with the ankle right under the knee. If we're flowing from tabletop, tucking the left toe, lifting the knee, and then meeting in that high lunge or crescent pose, Chandrasana, bringing the hands up overhead, palms facing one another, drawing those arms down into the shoulder sockets. And then imagine you're gonna stay Nice and firm in your lower body, keeping that deep bend in the front knee. As you extend through the low back, open the heart, draw your elbows down and out, find cactus arms or goalpost arms, gazing for the sky. Inhaling, lifting back toward neutral, reaching for the fingertips, biceps frame the ears. And opening through the heart, elbows draw out and down. Inhaling, lift. Exhaling, open. And finding one more. Inhale, lifting your way back toward that crescent pose or high lunge. Big inhale here. Exhale, bringing the fingertips down to frame that right foot, and then lower your left knee, untuck your toe. Take that left hand, plant it on the floor just inside the right foot. Engage the right inner thigh to keep the knee over the ankle. Turn heart and belly toward that right thigh, finding a revolved low lunge. Right hand can slide to the hip. Maybe we can send it overhead. Big inhale. As we exhale, float or slide that right hand back down to frame the right foot, keeping the sole of the right foot connected to your mat. Start to rock the hips back toward the left heel, straightening the right knee. Half monkey pose. And then allow yourself to draw back a little further, lifting that sole of the right foot up off of the mat, drawing the toes back toward the shin. And getting ready to make our way forward. If you want to step back to tabletop, we're going to come about halfway between that half monkey and low lunge position. If you want to come back to downward facing dog, we're going to come all the way forward to that low lunge position. Tuck the left toe, lift the knee, slide that right leg back, or again, about halfway between. I have a little more space on the tips of my fingers to slide that right leg back and find my tabletop. Find a little movement as feels good in your table or your down dog. And then getting ready to move into that high lunge or crescent second side. So from table, stepping left toes forward. From down dog, inhaling that left leg back. Either way, we're all going to bring our ankle right under our knee. We're flowing from table, tucking the back toe, lifting the knee, and finding our way all the way up, fingertips reaching, spine neutral, hips square to the front of our space. Opening through the heart, elbows draw out and down, gaze comes high. Fingertips lift as spine finds neutral. And flowing once more. Lifting through the fingertips, big inhale. Exhale, bringing the hands down to frame that left foot. Lower the right knee, untuck the toe, plant that right hand just inside left foot. Keep that left inner thigh active to keep the knee in line with the ankle as we come into that revolved low lunge. Sliding the hand to the hip or releasing the hand overhead. Bringing the hand back down toward the mat. Keeping the sole of that left foot connected. Rocking hips back toward right heel. And then allowing yourself to come back a little further, peeling those left toes up off the mat. Head, shoulders reaching down for left knee. And then if you want to move back through tabletop, starting to walk forward, stopping about halfway between low lunge and half monkey. If you want to come back to downward facing dog, coming all the way forward, tucking the right toe, lifting the knee, moving through either a tabletop or a downward facing dog to start that walk forward to the top of our mat, moving through your forward fold. And eventually finding standing. And from this Tadasana, coming back to that flowing chair, moving chair through upward hands. So inhaling, sending the hands up overhead, exhaling, sending the hips back and down, flowing the hands through heart center. Inhaling, lifting, exhaling, lowering. Flowing once more, meeting in that chair. Hands could stay extended if you like, biceps frame the ears, or hands could come to heart center. Moving back toward a high lunge from this position. So bringing our weight over to our left leg, we'll lift our right heel, and then slide, scoot, or lift and float that right leg all the way back your mat. And then if we float with hands to heart center, we'll bring those hands up overhead. Find about a shoulder distance between the palms. And then opening up to the right, finding warrior two. So as we turn hips and heart to the right, we let that right heel connect to the mat, right toes turn out toward the side of the room. We bring those arms down so they're parallel to the floor. We've got a deep bend in the left knee. And traditionally, we would say heel to instep alignment. But if I feel unbalanced, I'm going to walk that left foot out closer to the left side of my mat. So I have a wider stance. Floating both hands, palm face up, straighten the front knee. Let the fingertips meet overhead as you gaze through the tips of the fingers. Bending back into that front knee, arms float down, gaze comes forward. Straightening that knee, gaze and hands lift. Bending into the front knee, arms lower. Flowing once more, meeting back in that warrior two, Virabhadrasana 2. Bringing the palms back to face the floor. And then taking a little reach forward with that left hand, we're going to float the left elbow down onto the knee, finding your extended side angle. Right arm comes all the way overhead. We find that long line of expansion from back heel through side body through top arm. If you want a little more challenge, take that left elbow off of the knee, press the forearm inside the lower leg. Next inhale, lifting all the way back to warrior two. And then reverse warrior or exalted warrior. Back hand comes to the thigh, front hand palm face up. We can take a little reach forward, and then we watch that arm scoop overhead while right hand slides down the thigh. Next inhale, lifting all the way back to warrior two. Big inhale here. As we exhale, we're going to cartwheel the hands down to frame that left foot, lift the right heel, and getting ready to slide that left leg back, moving through any sort of little flow or movement here that feels good. So you could slide that leg all the way back to plank, lower through low plank to find up dog, knees, chest, chin to find cobra, move through a child's pose or just hang out in a pose that feels good. And then eventually starting to make our way back toward mountain at the top of our mat. Moving through your table or your down dog, through your forward fold, finding Tadasana. And getting ready for our second side. Standing foundation, inhaling lift, exhaling through chair, inhaling lift, exhaling lower. One more, flow upward. This time as we sit back and down into chair, we'll pause. Fingertips extended if that feels better. Hands to heart if that feels better. Bringing weight over to right leg, lifting left heel, slide scoot or lift and float all the way back. High lunge, crescent pose. We float with hands to heart, reach the fingertips back overhead. And opening up to your warrior two, hips and heart open up to the left. Keep that deep bend in the front knee, floating arms down parallel to the floor. Floating the hands palm face up, straightening the front knee, fingertips briefly meet overhead as we gaze past them, bending back into that front knee, hands lower. And flowing once more, finding your way back to warrior two. And taking that little reach forward, we'll either bring the right elbow down onto the knee or bring that forearm inside lower leg, sending that left arm all the way overhead. Next, inhale, lifting back, warrior two, flowing right into your exalted warrior, reverse warrior as you're ready. Next, inhale, lifting back, warrior two. Exhale, cartwheel the hands down to frame the front foot. Inhale, slide that front foot back. Exhale, start your version of flow or find a pose to just hang out and find a few breaths. Moving through tabletop, downward facing dog, back towards forward fold, through Tadasana. And from Tadasana, inhaling, lifting through upward hands, this time exhaling over forward fold. Inhaling into a half fold, this time pausing in half forward fold. So finding a straight but not locked knees, nice neutral spine, and then we're gonna float the palms up alongside the hips, palms facing the floor, reaching the fingertips in the same direction as tailbone. Imagine the crown of head lengthening away, and then lift the arms a little higher than the spine. And then if you need a little more stretch here, you can keep the spine long, float the heart a little closer to your mat or your floor. Big inhale here. Next exhale, just letting everything go, fully softening over forward fold. Planting fingertips or palms, we're gonna set back the legs again into tabletop. So coming right back onto the knees, this time keeping the toes tucked. And then pressing your hips back toward your heels with your toes tucked. Starting to walk the hands in toward the knees, rolling all the way up into a toe stand. So hands walk in toward my body. I'm going to lift into the torso, keeping support of fingertips for a moment so I can float one knee off of my mat, float other knee off of my mat, and then either keeping the hands resting at the thighs, or if you like another variation, you can bring hands to heart center or send the hands overhead. And if hands are overhead, bringing the hands back to heart center. We're going to press from toe stand right back into mountain. So pressing into the toes and the balls of the feet as you start to straighten the knees. Eventually you will come to a place where the heels can melt back down onto mat. And then step the feet out a little wide. So feet are about as wide as the outer part of your mat, heels pointing in, toes pointing out. And sinking toward our deep yogic squat malasana. So the tailbone is going to reach back toward the space just behind and between the heels. For some of us, malasana is going to look like a really deep chair. We'll pause there. For some of us, we're going to be able to send that tailbone back and down a little more until elbows can reach to the inner part of the knees. Palms can gently press together. And then whichever version we're in, we're just going to release those fingertips down so they're reaching toward the floor in front of the toes. We're going to extend through the knees, lift the tailbone, bring the hands down, finding a slightly wide forward fold. Heel toe the feet back in line with the hips. And if you did not land near the back of your mat, go ahead and take a little scoot back so you're near the back of your mat. We're going to walk our hands forward toward the top of our mat. Lower the knees, untuck the toes, send the hips to the heels, finding child's pose. Slow roll our way up through kneeling, hero, and then lift up into a high kneel for a moment. We'll move through a gentle version of camel. So come up into that high kneel and then tuck the toes to lift the heels. Bring the hands around to the low back, tops of the glutes, and then press the hips forward. Let elbows, shoulders draw back, heart open, gaze come high. And then lifting back toward neutral. Untucking the toes, bringing the hands around to the thighs. Send the hips to the heels, slow slide the hands all the way back over to a child's pose. Always an option to find puppy pose or wide knee child's pose instead. And whichever version we're in, we're just going to start to walk both hands over toward the left side of our mat. Reaching belly toward left thigh. If you like, you can take that right arm, cross it across left wrist, reaching a little further out to the side. Walking both hands back through center. Finding that stretch on the second side. Walking hands back through center. Slow rolling your way back toward kneeling and just moving through kneeling to come around to a seat. We'll send both legs out long in front of us for a moment. And then keep your left leg long, bend your right knee, slide that heel in toward your glute, and then we'll lift that leg, cross it across the left. So the sole of the right foot connects to the floor just outside our left knee. And then we'll take our left arm around that right knee. Inhale to imagine some length in the spine, drawing tall through the crown of the head. And then exhale, twisting heart and belly toward that right thigh. Right fingertips find the floor behind our right hip. Or maybe that back of the hand or forearm slides and rests on the lower back. Starting a slow unwind back towards center. We'll release that right leg, send both legs long, maybe press into the floor, lift the hips to recenter, give the legs a little shake or ankles a point and flex. And then sending both legs long, sliding that left heel in, crossing that foot across the right knee, using the right arm, scooping around that knee, inhaling, finding a nice long spine, exhaling, turning toward that thigh, left fingertips find the floor behind the hip, maybe we find a bind. Unwinding back towards center. Release that left leg long. Any little movement for legs, hips that feels good. And then if you are near the back of your mat, we're just going to take a little scoot forward so our tailbone is right around in the center of our mat so we can lower down onto our back. Coming down onto your back, first just bring the bent knees into the belly and find a little rolling movement on the spine. We're drawing some knee circles. And finding stillness, bringing the soles of both feet back to the mat, bringing the palms down on either side of the hips, moving toward bridge. So big inhale at the bottom. First part of the exhale, we press into the feet. Imagine lengthening tailbone toward heels. Slow peeling that spine up off the mat, a little bit at a time. Finding the top of that bridge, lower body engaged, head, neck, shoulders relaxed. There's another version that you like to add in here. Please feel free to add any other variation with the arms. Moving through one more breath. If arms are not on the mat beside you, using that breath to bring your arms back to a supportive position. Slow, lowering the spine all the way back down onto the mat. When you get there, bringing both bent knees back into the belly. And then moving into happy baby, allowing the knees to open out wide toward the armpits, soles of the feet to reach for the ceiling. We can bring the hands to the hamstrings or to the outer edges of the feet. And if we're not there, coming back to stillness in center, and we're going to bring the soles of the feet to meet in the air, reaching the knees a little further out to the sides. Draw your heels in towards your glutes, and if they're in reach, bring your hands to the outer edges of your feet. Draw those feet in even a little closer as knees reach away. And releasing the hands. If hands are engaged, releasing the legs back down to the mat. We're going to send the legs long. So straighten the knees, reach toes away from you. Send the arms overhead, reaching through the whole body, toe to tip, full body stretch or east to west stretch. And then just let everything go. Flop down onto your mat. Let the legs rest a little wide. Let the arms rest a little wide. Taking a moment to just check in here, see if you feel comfortable for a few moments of stillness, or if you have props or pillows or blankets handy, and you would like to add a little support for the low back or the knees, or there's another position that you enjoy ending your practice with. Settling down into something really restful, where you can allow all the tissues of the body to be fully soft. Noticing the spaces where you're connected to or supported by. a mat or the floor, or a pillow. And with a few easy breaths, you just soften and relax a little more into those spaces, letting go of any areas of holding or tension, letting go of any areas of stress. Allowing the breath to completely let go. Allowing the mind to rest. Bring in gentle awareness back to the spaces where you are supported by something, feeling the weight of you resting toward the earth. And then beginning to bring some gentle movement back into those spaces, maybe a gentle rocking side to side, turning your head side to side, moving the hands, feet, arms. And if you like, bring in bent knees into the belly, rocking up to a seat. Or if you like, bring in bent knees into the belly, rolling over to one side, moving through fetal position. Eventually pressing your way up toward an easy seat, cross legs or kneeling or coming up onto the edge of a chair. And in your easy seat, finding one last big inhale together, sweeping the hands overhead, exhaling, bringing the hands to heart center. Thanks so much for joining me this morning. Namaste.